All pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have anybody online or?
It doesn't look like it.
All right, good. We'll be a small group. Well, good morning again, everyone. Well, everyone's here. I see that. All commissioners here, Heidi, town clerk, police chief, and residents. So I think what we'll do, Heidi had asked that we get together as a commission and have a strategic session to determine what are the staff's priorities as we go into next fiscal year and beyond. Everyone has provided, I think, some input. Heidi's compiled a deck. I think it was emailed out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I was, okay, I was the only one, sorry. So she's got the information that everyone compiled. I reviewed it all. I thought it was great. And I think what we'd like to do today, I don't know, do you want to go kind of priority by priority and talk about it? I think it's, I think before we jump into it though, I think it's be super mindful for us as commissioners to think about these priorities come at a cost. So, excuse me. They come at a cost. So when we talk about priorities, be it a beach walkway, equipment for the police department, additional town staff, in the back of your mind, be thinking about one thing, and that is the increased cost that's going to come accompany that. So I also wanted to, as we get into the discussion, there's like 5 items, I think there were. One of them was the resiliency item. And I think that's particularly important because if we don't have roads and they're underwater and we don't have a beach and houses are gone, it's going to be kind of hard to have, you know, a community. And with what's going on in Washington right now, I have an article in front of me that I printed out. I thought it was appropriate for our discussion today because what's happening at FEMA is very, very interesting. And what the current administration is doing in terms of funding and priorities for funding associated with natural disasters looks like a lot of the money may not be available to states, which means a lot of the money that comes out of Washington DC in terms of grants from FEMA likely will not be there at least for the next 4 years. So if you want to make copies of this, people can look at this whenever they like. But I thought it was important for today's discussion because monies that have been available through FEMA for natural disasters will likely not be available in the future, is basically what I'm telling you. So again, in terms of priorities and funding, the deep pockets from Washington may not be available to us should a natural disaster occur. So Heidi, I'll kick it. I'm going to kick it to you. And in terms of public comment, I don't know the best way to handle it. Right now, it's really more of a discussion amongst the commissioners.
Correct.
At the end, if there's some public comment, we'll open the floor at the end. I don't want this to be a discussion with residents and commissioners. This is a discussion for commissioners. At the end, we'll have a discussion and we'll open it up to the public at the end. So no hand raising, no, I want to comment. Right now, it's only the commissioners. So at the end, you will have your say. So go ahead, Heidi.
And I think that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, I think that's great. Typically we do put them at the beginning, but usually in these sessions, we kind of want to have it as a wrap up, a consensus. Before we get started, I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. We have a new police officer and she happens to be training during the day today. So we asked her to come by. I'm gonna kick it to Chief Kerr to just quickly introduce Kelly.
Good morning. Morning. Kelly comes to us from the Jupiter Police Department. She served there 29 years. She, like all police officers, started out in patrol. She became a detective. And she primarily investigated crimes against persons, assaults, sexual batteries, and homicide. She is a very highly respected detective in South Florida. She's had a lot of high profile cases. I feel very fortunate that we were able to bring her here to Jupiter Inlet Colony. She actually retired on April 7th, and she came to work here to us April 8th. So no break in service.
No vacation is necessary.
We swore her in last week on the 8th, and we had the biggest crowd in here for any swearing in that we've had so far. Actually, the whole detective bureau is here. So again, we're very happy to have her here. John Angelone is our field training officer, and he's working with her today out in the field. So we're welcome her aboard with you.
Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
Be working for the residents now.
She's gonna be on the day shift, so you'll see her out here a lot. Our officers on rotating days off, so every other weekend they work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then other 2 days during the week. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. We thought it would be a good opportunity, especially with a new face in town. So, following up on what the, mayor spoke of, you know, this is what leads into our budget. Now, typically this time of year, as a city manager, I should be forecasting the economy, which I'm not gonna do here at work nor at home. So, it's gonna be an interesting year. The way the process works, for those of you who have never gone through municipal budgeting before, is on June 1st, we get our estimated assessed values. And that's what leads to our ad valorem tax revenue. Here in the town, most of the revenue we work from in our budget is ad valorem tax revenue. We don't have much else. So
Like 99%, right? I mean.
pretty
really
much, yeah, I
There's no
think
other
it's
sources of revenue.
yeah, about 96%. We get sales tax, that's on the chopping block, in Tallahassee right now. We get gas tax, that's fluctuates with as many, e-vehicles as there are out there. The communications tax is going down every year, so it is the most of our money.
And because of all of the bills, if you looked at the agenda packet for Monday, you'll see there's a lot of pending legislation in Tallahassee that could have an impact to what our budgeting looks like. There's a lot of pending legislation on expanding the homestead exemption, elimination of property taxes altogether.
Yeah.
You know, it goes as radical as that. So it's gonna be particularly difficult to really come to a conclusion on a budget until we see the impact of what happens in Tallahassee in this legislative session.
Absolutely, and the good side is, to some degree, a lot of those homestead ones would have to go to referendum statewide. So it might not impact us this year, but it could following years, but we have to prepare we need to be
Right.
realistic and be ahead of it, like we're facing our own recession, here.
Yeah, and I think it's equally, I mean, there's a lot of pressure from the governor and the legislator right now because of what's happened in the state. The state is no longer deemed affordable because of the insurance crisis that's going on. Property taxes are the primary sources of revenue for all municipal and local governments and county governments. There's a lot of pressure to lower that, to make it more affordable, because a lot of people are starting to leave the state because they can't afford to live here.
And one of the things we are able to take advantage of every year and is the fact that not all of our properties are homesteaded. So some of the bills that are out there actually extend homestead to non-full-time residents as well as rental properties. So it could impact us on all fronts, right? They triple the homestead, they extend who can be homesteaded. A lot of it's gonna impact us. The good side is we had 2 significant homes built in 2024, and that will hopefully allow for us to grow. I'm hoping we see our standard 10 to 15% growth, but at the same time, it's going to be tight because we don't know what the future holds. We also have some big expenses ahead of us. We need to continue to build our reserve. We need to be a little more proactive with our infrastructure that hasn't been tended to for the past 5 to 7 years. And then it's also in the manager's report that's in your backup, and we can talk further about it and some ideas we have at the meeting on Monday. But we also have one of our loans that TD Bank has decided to call in a year early. So we cannot assess our residents a year early per our ordinance. However, we would be responsible for the payment. It's 200,000. We have enough in savings here and there that we should be able to cover it, and we would get paid back the following year, but that will also be built into our budget. And with that also is over the years, we have always covered about half of the years, we've covered shortfalls for this same loan, and it's never been properly budgeted from what I can tell. So we need to just make sure we're doing everything right. So that's kind of like the worst case scenario as we go into it. Again, we're the 6th most expensive town in the state of Florida, as we all, once again, were reminded this year or this week. So, you know, we're not in the same situation as some of our other communities in Palm Beach County are in, but we have a fiscal responsibility to make sure we're being conservative. So what I'd like to do is I took each of your feedback on all 7 areas. What I'd like to do is to go through each one individually, solicit feedback as we go through, and then what I suspect is then we'll start at the top again, once we've seen everything, and then start to pull back the list. I did start, and you mentioned this before, Mayor, I did start actually to like highlight things in green if it costs money, but I figured you all would be able to figure that out, and I didn't want to give any feeling of prioritization. So under town operations, what we heard were keep records properly, single pickup or what we call single stream recycling, an update in policies and procedures to align with the new form of government, an update to the website and communications with residents, and that operations is responsible for the infrastructure of the town services. 3 of you wrote in about compensation and benefits for qualified staffing and consultants. Provide ongoing technology training for staff, provide a monthly list of all income and expenses, including variances, and also to put it on the website to ensure fiscal responsibility and discipline to build our reserves, establish checks and balances for revenue, expenses, and payroll, and ensure all commissioners have view-only access to the bank statement.
See, I view this as the foundation for everything,
Correct.
right? So, you know, you can't undergo a project, you can't do really much without having basically all of this in place, right? This is the foundation and the core government operations of the town. And this strategically is a high priority because I feel like I'm doing all the talking, but I feel like we need to do a better job of retaining our police officers. I think we've got too much turnover in the police department. So what costs that come? Because we're probably not competitive on a salary, right? So that's something that, again, is a core foundation principle. Same with general town administration. All this other stuff is kind of table stakes in terms of fiscal responsibility, but you have to have, in my view, just the core government operations. Is vital and important to ongoing, you know, town, you know, operations. I mean, it also extends to our consultants too. I mean, I don't feel like you know, from my narrow view into our consultants, is that we're getting everything that we need out of them. And in fact, I think we're not, in fact, I know we're not. And you know, this extends to them. I want to make sure that you have the best staff. The chief has his best staff and we can retain them, and our consultants work for us, not against us.
Yes.
You know, we pay them, they, you know, I get the sense that they feel like it's the other way around.
Correct. Yes. And there will be changes coming with that, which will be also efficient operations and I think cost savings.
And again, you know, the reserves, what you talk to us a little bit about our reserve funding, what we have in reserves. And how do you benchmark that against other municipalities? Because I am fearful that, God forbid, there is some sort of natural disaster. I get the sense that we're going to be, it's not going to be like it has been in the past, and we're gonna need money to take care of restoration efforts and other things. Some of that money may come back to us at some point,
Mhm.
but we're gonna be the ones that have to write the checks first.
Yes.
So talk to us about how we should look at reserve
Yes.
funding. A city of this size, on a percentage of our general operating budget, about $3 to $3.5 million, what should be our reserve funding? And what is it today?
Yeah, sure. So our GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, has a rule of thumb that we always go by, which is 3 times your monthly expenses.
Okay,
So give or take, our monthly expenses can run between 250 and 300. So I like to
but
use.
say $1 million.
I like to use round numbers also because of our location. We need to be a little more aggressive with that. So we should definitely be at 1 million. Right now, we are in the 300 to 400 range because of the beach restoration, and it kind of wiped out our reserve, what was supposed to go into reserve. With that being said, we should end this year meeting our goal of putting about 400,000 in the reserve. So we will be close to rebuilding our reserve by the end of this year. I always caution that though, because I do not feel, and this statement should not sound as unqualified about myself as it's going to sound, but I do not feel confident about our budget that I inherited, that we're working in. Because of things that come up, I don't know how things were properly budgeted and what our real expenses are. From the way money was spent before to what was really hidden in line items. So I'm confident that we'll end the year with about a 700 reserve
Right,
conservatively. So we're not that far off, but then you take into consideration what we're looking at next fiscal year. I'm not sure how much we can build.
yeah, and that's something I think. For me, it's an important, I think it's vital for the financial health of the town to have very, very good reserves, okay? And it only takes one event. It only takes one event, and, because we are in such a high-risk area, you could probably even make the argument that 1 million is very conservative.
Very.
So, at a minimum, that should be, in my view, at a minimum, that is a very high priority. We need to build up our strategic, reserves.
I agree.
Yes, sure.
But more importantly, I think we need a really strong strategic plan to respond to an event. I mean, I think it should be very carefully thought through and then itemized, and then every element, financially provided for. And I don't know, as we have that kind of plan in place, there are ways of doing this plan, digitally in an automated way that we could monitor it constantly. So that if there was a severe event, and we did have a severe event last year, that, this plan is in place, it can be executed, and we know exactly, or very close to exactly, how much it's gonna cost to implement the plan. So that's the way to get the appropriate reserve to match the appropriate plan.
So if I may, a great thing is the grant that we received and the work we're about to do, realistically, is probably the first step to building that plan, because that grant specifically looks at resiliency and what our vulnerabilities are, and so much of our vulnerabilities are weather related or infrastructure related. So I do think it's gonna take about 18 months to do that project. But I do think we'll be able to have like that work plan, the financial plan to understand what we need.
I don't think we have 18 months. We're gonna be
Right.
going into hurricane season. The forecast for the East Coast is much worse this year. And I think we have to have that kind of disaster recovery plan in place and know what exactly, or at least close to exactly what we need to do and how much it's gonna cost. And a timeline on how we're gonna respond. Because the timeliness of the response, as we learned last February, is critical. We could have lost those houses.
And that's what I've been talking about at pretty much most of the commission meetings, that we need to, be prepared for this, and that we need a plan. In fact, just a basic response plan. If something happens, how are we gonna lay that plan out? Just the basics. We don't have to do a huge study, just some of it's basically just common sense,
So we do have a hurricane response plan that Sergeant Beckman has worked on over the years. It's required for some of our funding
Mhm.
and to be positioned to get funding. So we do have that. Could it be expanded? Absolutely. Could it have dollar amounts associated with it? Absolutely. But we do have a basic response plan in place.
Well, good to know.
We recently coordinated with Tequesta as well. They serve as our home base EOC. So, we do a lot behind the scenes as we start to prepare for hurricane season or weather events in general.
Yes, any other comments?
So Bill, if I can call out one of your comments, you talked about the website being a
Mhm.
better resource. That's one of your, if you didn't notice, your initials are
initials.
behind
Yeah.
your items. So that is a cost. I actually spoke to the website people last week, so that could, now granted, we pay 5,000 a year, it could take us closer to 8 to 10, but the way I see it is an effective communication plan, including a website, could be a body, right? That takes the place in a small organization of a person if we're using the resource right. What we have now is not useful, down to applying for a building permit. So that is something you might see in the budget if we have the ability to do it, is more money going towards and modernizing and updating our website.
Mhm.
I think that would probably dovetail well with the aspect of the record keeping side of the house.
Yes.
I know we're attempting to
Yes.
attack the mess back there. I don't know how that's gonna be as far as the digitization.
Yes, so
process.
that's the next phase, once we know what we have and what we need to retain, is making sure everything is in a digital format. And it really is an easy upload, so you click on a page and all the resolutions that were ever passed are there.
So
If they're
just sort of-
indexed, absolutely,
Yeah,
yes,
That's good.
yes. So all of that would lead to the better website.
And then that website would also be potentially available to house that.
It should be on the website.
Absolutely. So that would be a means for which that can be tracked and monitored. and
Total
updated and
visibility.
so on.
Would you distribute to the commissioners the hurricane plan? as well as
Absolutely,
drafted?
yeah,
The issue with tying money, it's hard because every event is so unique.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to tag and forecast what it will cost, given any particular storm. And that's why you generally have the reserves to cover whatever it is that you may need.
But there are models. I mean, there was like a model to respond to 9/11. I mean, there are models out there that could be helpful.
Or maybe Bob can take a look and see if there's some general estimates related to debris. I mean, really, yeah. If there's category 5, no one will be back here for a while, so, I think, it's a category 1, it's just basically gonna be more debris,
Mhm.
maybe some flooding.
But we have to
Both
be
look so
ready.
different
I
in terms of cost, because infrastructure gets wiped out in 5 and,
But we have to be ready. We have
Yeah.
to be ready.
Yeah, and that's why there's a plan, so.
yeah, and we do have contracts for the debris removal.
With waste management.
And typically it is reimbursed through FEMA, but we don't know if
That's
we
right.
will be.
Reimbursed.
Yeah, and they've made it more difficult to get reimbursed over the years, so.
Well, speaking of insurance, our insurance policies, what do we have? I mean, what are our policies? Who are they with? And what limits do we have, like on this building? And, what are we covered? Are the cars covered under that? And
Everything's covered through FMIT, the
Okay.
Florida Municipal Insurance Trust, which covers for cities. We have everything from property, workman's comp, cybersecurity,
Flood.
flood.
Okay,
Yeah, everything is covered through
Will
FM
you
19.
supply, again, the commissioners, the limits of that policy?
Sure,
Specifically, the, the flood and general we have liability through them and property. So
Yeah,
just
we
give
have
us the
everything.
Limits and
Yeah.
what's covered.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then are those reviewed every year? Does Tony review these to make sure of any updates that we may need or increase the limits for some reason, you know?
Well, let's take a look at them first. I.
No, I'm just
yeah,
asking if
who-
they're reviewed.
Who looks at them and, what's the cost too? And you may not know that right now, but.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
let's-
kind of on auto drive with the state
Okay.
renewing them. We pay quarterly, so.
Okay,
I think one of our biggest issues is beach access,
Mhm.
having a system where we're not having to go to the beach club every time, and I know there's some discussions going on about that. Do you want to give us an update on?
that's on Monday's
That's
agenda.
Monday.
It's on Monday.
That's on
Yeah,
Monday's
yeah, our,
It's in the backup of the stuff.
yeah, our engineers looked at everything, and they'll talk us through it on Monday, but as we continue to go through, if you wanna go to the next slide. We'll get to beach, and beach access kind of was a common
Just
theme
let's
for
wrap up
everyone.
the first one
Sure.
first, because I wanna make sure that everybody that. I said what was important to me, which is the reserves and obviously staffing and
Mhm.
consultants and all of that. I wanna make sure that everyone has a voice, that your voices are heard here
Well, we could-
because.
Potentially run through each bullet.
Yeah, you want to just go through where our initials are and.
Sure,
So, yeah, the records thing, Heidi and I had some of mine are a result of a discussion that we had about what's
Mhm.
going on and updating. And one of them was about the records, which Mark mentioned. We're in a process now where we're getting to the point where we know how much we have to keep, what we need to destroy, and then to your point, Sharon, about digitizing and making it a lot more efficient to hopefully free up some space here, which is a point about this building itself, that I'll bring up later. And then the second point about this single pickup recycling, Heidi and I talked about, do we have to have separate recycling? Is that something that Waste Management mandates for Palm Beach County? Could we make it as simple as having a container for trash, having a big container for recycling? They come around and with, one machine or two machines and pick it up, and makes it a lot easier for a lot of people that bring their recycling out to the front every day. It's a lot easier to wheel it out to do all that. I don't know if that's an option.
yeah, I'm supposed to be getting with Waste Management soon, just to see
The
what
10
the
trucks they have in
ability.
here every day is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, we have to cut back on that, the impact to the
Well,
neighborhood.
not every day,
Yeah.
every pickup day.
Yeah,
Well, it's basically like 4 trucks. They got one for vegetation, one for one type of recycle, one for the other type of
Exactly.
recycle, and waste. Flip side, what would be nice to know along that same lines of single is that sometimes they bring one truck that gets both sets of recycle independent cargo space.
Right.
Not all mixed together, because they don't want
Yeah.
the mix in this particular area.
I think big picture, this stuff this stuff is general government stuff that
Yeah.
she can take care of every day.
Yeah, that's a
Think,
general effort.
well, strategically think bigger, like
Yeah.
reserves,
Yeah,
staffing and stuff like that. These are things that strategically she needs some direction from us, that these are the things that she needs to work on. And no offense to the trash pickup yet, but it's just kind of like, that's not a strategic imperative,
Absolutely.
right? That's like
Well,
a general government operation.
let's
The-
go to
the-
last
even-
bullet there.
Even the website, that's not strategic. That's something that, hey, that's important, Heidi, that, if the commission feels that way, we need to upgrade it and tell us how much it's gonna cost and come back to the commission to do. Again, that's not strategic. That's not thinking big picture. That's, hey, we need to do this.
Okay, let's
Go do it. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
do the last bullet in that stack here then. Because that would be strategic.
Yes, that would be strategic. Yes,
Yes.
I would agree with
right,
that.
right.
We need to put money on by the way, the beach club is redoing their seawall. We have outfalls going through that seawall.
Yeah, we have.
Are we gonna be covered with the new construction of that seawall? So I wanted to tell you that. so you
yeah,
wanted to-
no,
we
yeah,
need to look at
it's
the plan.
actually in
Yeah.
here,
Yeah,
yeah,
Heidi's aware of that for sure.
I've been in conversation with him as part of that process in reference to
Yeah.
that outfall, but there's one that goes out.
Yeah, like, so infrastructure, reserve funding, like that's strategic, that's super important, that's stuff that we should be talking about, but the little stuff we should, let's leave that for a regular agenda item. Or just get with Heidi and tell her that you got a problem.
All right, is there any, you don't wanna do anything with that, the bullet down in that stack?
Well, I think certainly the infrastructure is important. I think the funding, the reserve funding is important. I think the
Exactly.
staffing and is important in making sure that we have are we always gonna be competitive with a Jupiter or West Palm Beach or Palm Beach County? Probably not, but I think we can get more competitive.
Mhm.
I don't like to see the turnover as much as we've seen in the police department, you know, and I think we should try to understand that and do better in retaining our highly engaged employees. We need to do a better job of retaining.
Chief, how is our job here viewed amongst your peers as far as, I mean, it's a small community. I would think you're not dealing with the more dangerous issues that you might be dealing with in other localities. And so is that a way of attracting people to work here? And then Mark's point about compensation and benefits and keeping people, is there quote unquote work lifestyle enough to not have to pay somebody the same as you would get in on Jupiter Island or Palm Beach County or whatever?
Well, the work definitely is different here. I mean, the basics are the same. And during when I'm swearing people in and I talk to the family and talk to, you know, our staff and everything. When I've interviewed officers for police officer positions in various jurisdictions. As a police chief, the last thing I want to know is, why do you want to be a police officer? How do you view community policing, things like that? And the response that you invariably get from rookies right out of the academy to people who've been working for a while is the fact that they want to help people. They want to help resolve issues in the community. They want to be part of the solution to crime issues and things like that. Just take Jupiter. I've worked on a very large jurisdiction in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC, where it's busy all the time. Jupiter has grown so fast over the last 10 to 15 years that it's hard for them to keep up with the number of traffic accidents that happen every day. I mean, if you would listen to our radio, we're on the same frequency with them. They're going call to call most of the time, and they're short people. Here, when they come to work, they know if somebody in this community needs something, they're able to help. You know, whether it's somebody who changed flat tires, you know, we've helped people move stuff into their house that they're struggling with, particularly our older generation in the community. We're always doing things that, and it makes the officers feel good that they're able to do that. So they've gone, like Kelly, for example, Johnny is one with me for Jupiter, Kevin Swebbs, it's on the night shift, from being boom, 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 one thing after another, to now being able to actually take the time to help somebody resolve issues. We have keys to 99% of everybody's houses in here. And last year, we've had one of our older residents fall in the middle of the night and had to call for help. Officer came in here, grabbed a key real quick, went, helped her, got rescued to her, didn't have to kick in the front door, you know, break a window or something to get in. So these are all things they just do every day. You don't even hear about a lot of it. So it's rewarding. So they're looking for that, and they know they're not in a high danger situation. But that could change in a heartbeat too. I mean, we've arrested felons coming in the middle of the night. We've had things happen every day. Or to Questa had robberies where they needed help. So the officers are getting there a lot of times before they do. That happens on this end of their community. When we had the active shooter at the mall last year, I put out something right away because we hear about it on the radio and they're asking for help. But we told everybody in this community within 5 to 10 minutes of it happening. The people that lived in the gardens didn't find out about it until it started flashing in the news media about a half hour later. So these guys like being that much of the community. And when you talk about community policing, the one part of it is when they teach it in the academy. And people try to live it, is that you're actually part of the community. You're like neighbors, you're just the one that's getting paid to protect the community. And our number one priority is to make sure everybody's safe in here before anything else. So I guess to get back to your original question, is they don't expect to get paid as high as Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens or Boca Raton. But it is a factor in where they decide they're gonna go, because there are other jurisdictions our size that do that. So, but I can tell you, in talking to them all the time, they're very happy with being able to work in this community.
When you put out a notice that we have a position available, do you get a lot of response?
No,
Really?
we struggle to stay at full staff this past year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the town benefits from you being here. Because you obviously were chief in Jupiter and you know a lot of the officers, you have foresight to some retirement and you can pick up a phone. And I think that's benefited us. But if the chief wasn't here, that's what I'm worried.
Right.
And, you know, I just
And I
think,
got lucky because there's a cycle in retirement, for people that came on in the early nineties, late eighties, they're retiring. Yeah. Or even the mid nineties. So Jupiter just went through that wave, so it helped me get back to close to full staffing. But Richie Roberts, remiss not to mention this, he's leaving. His last day was 2 days ago. He's had some family issues, some emergency things that comes up that he has to take care of. And he has to retire, so,
he was here 12 years, he told me.
yeah, and, you know, several people in the community were crying when they found out he was leaving, because he had been so much a part of helping them over time. So, right now, it's kind of dried up again a little bit. But
Money would help, right?
it would help, and in fact, it was one of the reasons why I came back here when I retired, because I thought I was gonna stay there. Was the fact that all the chiefs in this area I know personally, I've known them for years. And they're very quick to help us out if we need anything. I mean, at the drop of a hat, if one of our officers says he needs it backed up, he's stopping somebody that's wanted it, whatever, they're right here. And, you know, they've all promised me to help. Right now, we don't pay anything for advanced training for our officers, because we put in Jupiter a block training where every year they go back for a certain amount of training. They include us, and we have carte blanche. There, Palm Beach Gardens has a state-of-the-art indoor range. We have carte blanche there. So our officers are very, very, very well trained. Kevin Swebb's an underwater recovery. He was a SWAT team member. You know, he was honor guard. So take Kelly, her background, John Angelone was a boat captain there. He was on motors. He's a trainer. He's a traffic homicide investigator. If we ever had something happen here, it could happen tomorrow. We don't have to call anybody else to come in here to do those things.
So if I could just jump in, just for some context too, we do need to start leveling our officers better. But we did build in an 8% increase this past year, but we're not there yet. But you know, we're trying to incrementally get there.
And that's helped us.
Yeah.
Because the year before, it was,
Right.
we weren't getting anybody.
Right,
Yeah, so maybe as part of the budget process, we can take a look at that again this year, but I'd like to see some empirical data on how we benchmark our pay against, you know, I know we're gonna be less, but it would be helpful to see like Jupiter Island, Palm Beach Shores. I don't know if they still have their own. I'm not sure. if
They
the county-
don't,
it's the county now.
But
Several
Jupiter
others.
Island, they're triply certified, so that's a whole
Yeah,
different,
yeah,
you know, scenario. just right
yeah,
off
yeah,
the
because
bat.
they do paramedics too.
And fire rescue.
Right, so, but it still would be helpful just to get some empirical data so that as part of the budgeting process, we can say, hey, our officers are generally 15 to 20%. Well, well, we're not gonna get them there in this bid
Right.
budget year, but maybe we need another 8%. I don't know, but that, it would be helpful to see what starting salaries are in some jurisdictions as well relative.
And also too, Chief, so when somebody comes to work here, now, I'm just, cause I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there. I noticed like when you see on TV, they're, suspended or whatever, they gotta turn their gun and their badge in. So, I mean, equipment, does our town issue equipment to our officers, or do they have to bring their own equipment? How does that work? And the,
Overall, we provide them the uniforms and bulletproof vests and things like that. The town, in the past and to date right now, do not supply them with their firearm. There's a little bit of, and I want to get there, that we do, because, I mean, let's say, God forbid, they have to use their firearm in the line of duty. We're gonna take that weapon, and they generally are on administrative leave. Well, we're taking their personal weapon. Right?
okay, so it's their personal weapon, not an
That's-
issue by the town, okay.
Right, so that's something we really have to look at. Everybody else around us does issue. But.
And what about the vest, the Kevlar vest?
We issue that, and actually, the officers that are coming to us from Jupiter have certified vests right now, so they're good for another couple of years.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be able to, strategically do the kind of replacements that we need to do. We got ourselves in a little bit better shape with what Heidi was talking about with the 4% performance and the 4% cost of living. I think that's another thing that we could probably build on for a couple of years and not have to go maybe quite that high initially. But, build in a way to get pay raises.
Yeah.
Right now, the way it's been set up is you walk through the door, you're making the same pay as somebody that's been here for 2, 3, 5 years.
Right.
Richie was our highest paid guy because he had been here 12 years.
Right.
And then the other thing is to the right, it was a lot of information came in about technology. I think, can we just
Technology.
agree
Yes,
broadly, technology, as we build the budget?
yes, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be the 6th highest, whatever, property value in the state and not have up-to-date technology, access to the website, being able to get information, interacting, us getting information out, people being able to communicate with us, being able to present ourselves from a marketing point of view. I think it's
And even for public
cost of doing
safety,
business.
we need to have the best. For public safety, we need to have the best,
Yeah.
and the best is out there.
And so the technology isn't, as we go into budget, so we're not caught off guard and we're on the same page. Technology is just not the cameras coming into the community. Another is our laptops that our officers use. They're like off the shelf from Staples, no memory. We have 4 basically that we are dead in the water with consistently. So we're looking at this year, while we have some savings and positions and other things of upgrading it, but we're gonna need to do 4 at a time. Essentially, because they can't even connect to the proper Wi-Fi. So it's,
And that's disastrous.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
that-
how many do we
Absolutely.
need? How many do we need?
I don't know what we need totally. I know that we're looking at right now upgrading 4 within
Okay.
this current year.
yeah, so what would be helpful, I think, Heidi, because we're getting into the weeds again. I think what would be helpful, as part of the budgeting process, that the chief and you need to sit down and think about the comments that you've seen, think about what you have on the screen, and say, what do I need to prioritize for next fiscal year, or what that cost is? If it's new laptops,
Yeah.
one of the things, again, more strategically, that I put up there was, would it benefit the town to have expanded use of the cameras? Could we run, there's fiber in this community, AT&T, Comcast, they have fiber. We should be able to deploy cameras generally pretty easily. Would it be helpful to expand and have more cameras throughout the community, not just at the entrance?
Right,
And so more, again, thinking strategically, not, hey, I need to get laptops, well, that's fine, we'll get the laptop, but what can we do from a security standpoint to harden the community? What does that look like? What does that cost? I mean, laptops are important, but again, that's kind
Well,
of
I
table
just, I
stakes.
wanted to bring up laptops,
Yeah.
cause you all are focused on the street stuff, but when we come back, we might have to measure some things because we
100%.
have in-house
So
technology
looking at all
needs.
that kind of technology you're
Yes.
talking about.
I mean,
there's-
there are
there's
communities
something-
like Admiral's Cove that
uh,
are state of the art, and I'm not suggesting we need to go to that. But
But there are ways to.
Yeah, but I mean, we should be fully integrated and we should have excellent response time.
so why don't, what, again, more strategic approach. Big picture, what is it that the police department would need to, again, ready and harden this community more so than just at the entrance?
Obviously, our shorelines. And there's ways of doing it without violating anybody's privacy, it's
Mhm.
putting technology that'll pick up somebody coming in as a landing in the middle of the night.
Right.
or Approaching our
And we'll look
docks.
at all that.
Yeah, why
We'll
don't you?
look- Yeah, we'll look at all that.
Tell us what that looks like, and as a commission, we'll sit here and say, yes, I like that, no, it's too expensive, and you know, the cost benefit there is not there, so. Again, strategically, that's what we're looking, we need to see that. And you can schedule that when you're ready as part of a regular commission agenda item, obviously, some of these individual things will come as part of the budget. But more broadly, we should have a discussion about what that looks
And
like.
we're looking at grants for
Good.
stuff also.
Yeah.
Like for the drone, you can get a grant for a drone, right?
But we're already looking at.
Okay, that's why I put the drone, but it wasn't for us to have to pay for, it was under, but you see. With these, I didn't realize that you were talking more bigger
Yeah,
picture, we were
yeah.
thinking more
Yeah,
detail.
and that's fine.
Yeah.
I know this is all
Yeah.
good. It's all, you know, it's all good. A lot of this stuff will come up through the budget process.
Yeah,
So-
right.
So I think, just to close it out, I mean, I think you kind of got an idea. of
Yeah,
what-
absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So let's keep going to the
Yep.
beautification.
So this one, again, and I hear this so many different ways, is it the beach side or is it the riverside? Can it be both? So what are our priorities right now when it comes to beautification and walkways? Now, to get into the micro, like just to put that to a side, I'm already working with our landscaper and bringing down our cost and making sure
Yeah.
we're efficient. I'm
I think we
working
pay way
with,
too much money,
yeah, and
way too much.
and we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing, such as Beach Road. I'm meeting with some of our, an ad hoc committee from the garden club, and we're gonna talk about how the walkways actually look. So don't worry, this is all
Right.
happening on a day to day. But when it comes to beautification, what are the priorities here? And do we, and this is still my outsider eyes, are we doing too much in that, we're going over the top as if we are a gated community
Mhm.
off of Donald Ross Road?
Yeah.
Or is that the expectation of what we should have
Well,
here?
I believe that, there is a certain high level expectation of the residents here, and they should have that. However, I think we overpay for what we get right now. And I think the community looks generally really good. I mean, there's outside some dead grass along the walkways, which I agree with you, Dave, we should put rocks, the hell with the
Yes.
grass anymore, it's ridiculous.
And
But
that's.
generally speaking, the community looks pretty good.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't think of one, if you go down to the beach access, sometimes there's sand and stuff all over, but
It's not
You
so
live
much
on
the
the
sand,
beach.
it's the dog excrement that's really been a problem. I mean, it seems like it gets better than it gets worse and,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, well, I had
It's
a
just
comment to her about a
responsibility.
month ago
That's
about all
just-
that, and it's a
yeah.
problem, it is a problem,
Yeah.
it's generally from renters or short-term residents more than likely, but.
Mhm.
That's gonna be ongoing, but
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
community looks good, I just think we overpay for it, and. I don't really have kind of a strategic imperative or priority in terms of what this place looks like, I think it looks pretty good.
So the intercoastal deck is in this year's budget. We're working on it. We hope to have what we call 30% kind of plans in front of the commission in May.
Mhm.
So
With a cost estimate, are we gonna have a better cost estimate?
we should have a better cost estimate, because with the plans, and that's when I guess the decision will be made,
Yeah,
how far we keep going with it.
yes,
So, I mean, we kind of understand the day-to-day maintenance, but just in this, are we missing anything, I guess, is the big picture, what we
On
wanna
the,
know.
on the west deck, proposal, I think, Chief, if we could get input, that same time about how we can secure that area, you know, what potential issues might we have with, access from people on the intercoastal that will wanna use it as their own personal deck, and do we need to have cameras or things like that? If we could have that as part of it, great, protect the.
And that was one of the
And
items that we talked about.
that's
a while
exactly
back,
what
the
we were
camera.
looking
Yeah,
Great.
and then also that it was gonna be closed off at a certain time too. They talked about that a while
You don't
back.
have access to that deck because you've got a whole mangrove system that's.
No, they can't get through there. They can't get through.
Well, they can get.
If they break the mangroves, yeah, they can get through.
Okay, so when we
Yeah, they
see the
could, yeah.
plans, we'll have
Yeah,
more
yeah.
on that.
The deck.
May.
Yeah.
May.
Yeah.
I wanna go to the next one?
Yep, let's
Does
keep
anybody have any
going.
other comments?
Is that what we're going towards?
It's,
No.
Just so on facilities, I maybe this been discussed before, but I know we bought the building, and I don't know that there have been any major, if any, renovations done. And how can we, some cost-effective ways to store some things in maybe an outside, under air storage unit instead of using, under building space, and then can we open this up to create more space, but still maybe just have like this wall here as a partition, so that you can have some privacy for Jackie, and then when the architects and contractors come in to meet versus this, I don't know if you.
yeah, I mean, I think town hall strategically has been talked about, and with Chip, you probably have some, maybe during your public comments, you can enlighten us, but I know there's been some discussion previously about this building, about maybe doing a second floor, about doing renovations and all, that is a strategic priority, okay, so if it is something that the commission wants to pursue strategically, again, we'd have to next year put in a budget to hire an architect, come in here, do an evaluation of the building, determine what options we have. We can have an option of adding a second floor. We can have an option just remodeling what we have. We can add an option of tearing it down and building a whole new building, right? I don't think we want to do that because I know what it costs to build a home in here, and it would have to be quite that nice, but it still would be very, very expensive, and I'm not sure that is what is needed, but we can look and evaluate all of those things. So if that's a strategic priority for this commission, then we can add that to the list. So that to me is strategic. Yes,
Also, in terms of general appearance, I think we also have to be very mindful of what the beach looks like. What the dune looks like, and I think we have to encourage that there's the appropriate plantings done on the dune sites. The Nature Conservancy will work with us, donate plants to us, donate labor to us. To help us keep that dune really looking appropriate and also safe. It has to look good and it has to be safe. And then people with walkways that are going down onto the beach, those need to be maintained.
Mhm.
They can't just hang in midair.
yeah.
The
that's a
rock
good- that's a good
rebayment
point.
needs to be addressed. Some of the granite boulders need to be pushed back. I mean, the beach is why people are here,
Mhm.
to walk on the beach. Okay, and that beach is an asset to everyone in this community, all 243 homes. That beach is an asset to them.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree
From
with
that
all that,
perspective-
but I would agree that the walkways, I hope we've done something.
No, the walkways look
With the
beautiful.
homeowners.
The walkways
that
look
have
fine.
the
Yeah, the walkways.
Yeah, there's
the walkways-
code, there's
the walkways
code.
Look great, and the garden club,
Yeah,
I
there's
think,
code.
has hit a ball out of the court on the park. The park looks beautiful. And all the orchids and everything, but the beach, we have to really make the beach a priority.
Before we start that, we have to figure out what's ours and what isn't ours. I don't think we have anything in here that will show where our responsibility falls from the end of the individual property owners to that high, mid, water line, or whatever you want.
The,
I mean, high water
it's
line
the
protection.
easternmost border of their property.
But we're.
They were
we're-
responsible for that,
My
and then
question-
we're responsible from that line to the high water line. And arguably, I mean,
I understand that. Problem is that right now, we do not have anything that identifies out on that sand where our borderline is.
well,
And
let's work,
therefore, when you want to put in, euphemistic more sand to build a dune or to protect the dune, we don't know where that is. So that strategically would be the starting point.
it can be surveyed because we surveyed Lot A. We did this specific
Yeah,
work on Lot A. We
Lot
had
A
a
is-
DEP permit on Lot A. We had plans from the Nature Conservancy. This isn't our first rodeo.
I understand that, but I don't think you can walk out at the end of our crosswalk and tell me where our portion of the beach is ours versus what belongs to the resident. in
We
that
could
area.
work with each of the individual residents.
But that's what needs to be done.
Okay,
And that, I think some of that's on the beach discussion.
Yeah.
Building
Okay,
and
yeah,
zoning, so I think, we're on a good track right now, we're looking at the zoning code. Some other things that have come up is code enforcement, continuing to communicate with residences. And then streamlining, just in general, the entire building process. I think, this is something everyone agrees on.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of that.
What
stuff we're already
technology
working on.
do you use currently?
We
IT
use,
Technology.
we use a software called MGO that I have never heard of before I came here, and it came to us through our building official. I'm not sure it's the most efficient, but we don't provide for it through
Yeah,
it's not integrated into our technology.
I mean, when we talk about building and zone, we're talking about processing.
Yeah.
Single family homes.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Right.
So we don't need a super robust
We don't
system.
need right, Oracle.
But again, I think it's imperative from from an operations standpoint that if what we have isn't working, I think just come to us and show us.
Yeah,
part of
it
the
works
budget
for us
process.
for now, yeah.
But again, I'm thinking bigger picture. If the code and the zoning code needs to be, you started this process of doing it from a strategic imperative. If that's something that the commission wants to do strategically, that's a bigger project. That's potentially a longer term project. We need to look at it, protecting, what we have now or enhancing values, as we move forward. A lot of this other stuff is, kind of day-to-day
Yeah,
operation.
exactly.
Not more strategic, big picture thinking.
Yes,
To me, the strategic big picture thing is kind of looking at the code in totality, bringing it up to date. And help protecting what we have and providing some, value enhancing elements to it for property owners. And the other thing is, this is my comment, is, it's not strategic, but it was, what appearance standards priorities do we have in our code right now?
we don't. We have a broad statement that says it should be compatible with the surrounding
That's
property.
very vague.
Yes, and that's what
Probably
we're
not
diving
enforceable.
into,
Right.
and that's what we're diving into.
All right, so to me, strategically, that's important because, you don't somebody doesn't want to come in here and buy a very expensive lot, invest a lot of money in building a brand new home. And then have someone next door say, hey, I just want to paint my house hot pink. I mean, again, it's probably won't happen, but it could. And then we're stuck in a position of trying to do that. I think we're at the point that it should be something that this commission consider to have some additional standards from an appearance standpoint.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know how anyone else feels
Yeah.
about it. It could be very, very controversial too,
Like
because
an HOA then.
it could, well,
What's that boils down to?
no, I mean, they're
some cities have
municipalities.
design guidelines.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
we're
they
talking
do.
about.
Yeah.
They're like Palm Beach.
Yeah, Palm Beach is very strict.
Color.
It could be.
Yeah, it is.
Some,
Absolutely.
some do.
Yeah, I do think law changed a couple of years ago. They can't regulate, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm picking color, but
No, I
it
know.
could be
No,
anything.
and I'll give it an excellent example. In the late nineties, when I worked in Miami Beach. Oh my God, I can't remember what like late nineties technology or club or whatever he owned. He came in and he built a castle that was all black with a moat going around it on Bay Drive. Which backs up to the intercoastal and everyone hated it and it just became, and the only place where there was protections were in the historic districts and it wasn't in the historic districts. So you'd think it won't happen, but this was a and this is late nineties money, super rich guy, the heyday of Miami Beach, and he built, you could probably Google it, the house with the moat. And,
Is it still there?
I think it was demolished in recent years because it fell into disrepair and someone bought it, and I think last I heard it was demolished.
I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but I think we're where we are in the community. A lot of people spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and
Yeah,
it's
we're,
something to consider, and I throw it on the table. There are many communities that do this, many.
Yeah.
yeah, cause we're to a point where some houses are just, they've not been maintained at all. I mean-
Yeah, well, that's a code enforcement
No,
issue.
I know that, but that still
Yeah.
goes into all that.
Yeah, it's a code.
And a bigger picture.
Yeah,
I think we have to be real, we have to get proactive in this. And there is some resistance, but I do think there is something for some standard of design guidelines, and why? Because a good 30% of this community is a tear down right now within this
Yeah,
market.
yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
have homes selling to be redeveloped, you know, we have homes that are selling at top dollar, that the kitchens and baths are being redone after they sold for top dollar. So this is constantly gonna be happening, and I think we need to. So how does it go into the bigger discussion? Right now, I am carrying this water through the boards, coming back to the commission. And it won't be until I have all the feedback that I might come and say, I really want a consultant to work on
Yeah.
this. And I'm not talking
right.
DPZ, I'm not talking the big players, I'm just talking a zoning consultant to kind of work on it behind the scenes. So that's where you might see it long term, but as far as the community conversations, I'm gonna carry that for now,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Any other comments on?
but I think
zoning
we're okay
code,
on
appearance
technology,
code, yeah.
staffing.
Yeah.
We've gotten really up there with controlling the process in the last few months. All right, streets. So this is a big one, you know, and I put this back into the same conversation. It's the walkways, the observation decks, the access to the beach. We need to maintain our infrastructure. It is something that has not been maintained. And we're right at that point. So we're not at a full failure or anything, but we're right at that point to jump in. But every year going forward, we should have maintenance built into our budget and our work plan, because we're starting to see some of that now.
Mhm.
I've asked, the town attorney,
You say work plan, is that the comp plan?
no, my work plan, my day-to-day, kind of, you know, what are our priorities, yeah. I've asked the, town attorney, and I don't have a definitive answer yet, if the assessment could be used for maintenance, and we're not clear on that right now. Or do we look at perhaps doing, now that one of the electric undergrounding assessment goes away in 2026, that's the loan that's been called. Do we look at doing another assessment for just stormwater maintenance and repairs? Or do we just budget for it each year? So these are some of the conversations you'll hear from us as we start going forward. We want to make sure that we're taking care of
Yeah,
it.
it doesn't, it can be an ad valorem assessment in your taxes, or it'll be assessment outside of the ad valorem, right? So
Absolutely.
either way.
We're taking it from the
Right, it
residents.
doesn't,
Yeah.
yeah, it's coming from one source, you're just calling it something different.
Absolutely. I would, predict that we are looking at about 75 to 100 a year just to maintain.
The stormwater.
Stormwater roads. Inlets, we just paid, I think,
30.
close to 30 for the clean out.
Yeah.
We're
By
looking
the way,
at
what was the outcome of
repaving.
that? I mean, did they get a lot out?
Yes, a lot came out. We found, You'll hear more about it on,
That's fine,
Monday,
that's fine.
but we found things in some of our gutters that we're not, or in some of our, storm
Yeah.
that we're not sure how they got there. But you'll hear more of that. So, yeah,
All right, so 75 a year to.
I would just to be on the safe side.
Well, so does that I mean, I hear you with the clean out. We hadn't done the clean out in 7, 9 years. It cost us 30. If we did it every year, would it still be 30?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And then, so we've got 40 that you're forecasting that could be earmarked for other general maintenance related items related to valley curves or roads or what have you.
repaving, crack.
But is that, could that also come from reserve funding too? Or-
I think we should be more proactive and budget for it every year. We should have, and so, we talk so much about Lighthouse. I just want to bring this up, but I was walking here on Colony, we have cracks here. And it gets to the point where it's an appearance as well,
mhm.
right? So it's just kind of just having that money, having a work plan, working across the town every year to maybe do repaving. The other side of it is we have so much impact in this community because of construction.
Mhm. Well, I put up there in the ability to put
Yeah.
a maintenance bond.
Yeah,
for each home
yes.
because of what happens out front. of these
No,
homes.
yeah,
Cracked valley curves, road
yes,
damage. all
Right.
that.
And speaking
Yes,
of
ma'am.
construction, I think the traffic on our streets, I drive my pickup truck every morning just to get a sense of the traffic on the streets. You have to literally thread through. And I think if there's some way that we can manage that volume on the streets, I think, in other words, have a contractor come in, if he's bringing in other people, have them park over at the Lighthouse parking lot or up at Coral Cove. But there should be a limitation on how many pickup trucks you can nest on the street, because the streets,
There
With-
supposedly already is one and just not being enforced.
well, they're impassable.
Mhm.
well,
True.
we're doing our best to enforce it, we're
Just
chasing
yesterday,
it,
there
yeah.
was 7 air conditioning trucks sitting out over here.
Yeah, we're chasing our
Not
tails
even
with
in
them.
front of the property being worked, and they were
Yeah.
there basically all day.
You can't walk your dog, there's not room for you and your dog to walk
I'm
down
not
the street.
exaggerating, I say 7
No, I know.
or 7 of them.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I take my dog now in the
Yeah.
pickup truck.
Yeah,
The other thing is that I was just sharing with Vice Mayor Vera that on Shelter, on the walk path, on the north walk path there, on the south side of the street, there's a small hole. In other words, the top of the pavement's come up, and that's gonna end up being a potential pothole, but if we take care of it now, it won't be a big issue.
Okay, I mean, is there anything else here? This is the last
no,
one.
you were gonna say something before. Oh, okay, okay.
The last one is the beach and resort.
Yeah, and they kind of overlap
Oh, yeah,
each other.
yeah.
So for the beach, we're all talking about access for future restoration and refurbishment of the dunes. There's been talk about improving access from the north walkway. And then we had some ideas about just dune restoration, creating a trust fund for the beach, and determining the public beach boundaries.
Okay.
But I think we all understand that access to the beach is probably our number one. And no matter what solution we go for, there is a cost associated with that. If it's rebuilding a walkway or entering into some kind of neighborly agreement, we need, but I do believe that is the priority for the town is, based on the feedback I got, and I guess I'm looking for confirmation of that.
Well, it is on the agenda on Monday night.
Yeah,
Is it, I've got propaganda for protecting coral reefs and don't teach your trash to swim and. There's a lot of work being done. Actually, MIT has some new technology where you can inject the coral reef with microbes and it reverses the bleaching. And the coral reef is really our best line of defense. It's our first line of defense. And it's unfortunately really deteriorating out there. But
how much does the town have access to take responsibility for that, right? That's not our coral reef. right?
No, well, it's not, it belongs,
Right.
it's not anybody's coral reef.
Right,
I mean, we
right.
can be intelligent about a
Mhm.
response and we can advocate a response. And we, we can be a thought leader, in this field. And why not? I mean, we're working, Gelona, we're a thought leader in that field, preserving that coastline.
Absolutely.
I mean, this, we could be, basically a Six Sigma town. I mean, that's how special we are.
Mhm.
So, anyway,
I
I'll
know,
bring all my propaganda. Don't teach your trash to swim.
That's cute. I like it.
I know it's on Monday's agenda, the access issue, so I think we can hold off that, but you kind of get a consensus, it seems like. We need to figure something out. And I think once we have a conclusion, because it's not gonna be cheap,
No,
you're gonna destroy one of those walkovers.
Yes.
I mean, we just spent $400,000 to build two of them.
yeah,
And so it's a $200,000, to take out one of those walkovers and put it back in. So, that's real money. That's a lot. But we'll talk more on, I guess. maybe.
but the beach is our priority, access to the beach, our shoreline is a priority
Yes.
for the town.
100%.
That's why we're here.
Absolutely. And then along the same lines, and we talked about this a little bit before, is Hurricane Crab. Looking for grants or other money for resiliency. And then just, the planning, and general activity of it. And I think storm resiliency, of course, is one of our, priorities as well.
Yeah, like you said, though, this just takes a lot of time, Grant, it's not gonna happen overnight, but. I think there's been great strides made in the last, year, 14 months in shoring this up, so. You can always do more, but again, it comes at a more cost.
Where's the grant money gonna be coming from here into the future, do you foresee?
DEP's one source.
The state, but so much of the state
is
funding,
eliminating its funding, basically, so
And-
where's the source gonna
and
be?
so much of the state funding comes from the feds too. It
Which isn't
trickles
gonna be
in,
there.
right?
There's more
It's
presented
gonna
to us.
be our responsibility, and I think we need to be more proactive, so we're talking about hurricane plans and we're doing the resilience action plan. But I do think something that's been on my mind as I've learned more and more about February 2024 is I think the town really needs to come up with a policy of the next time something happens, what do we do? Like, we need to have that, so we're not reactive, we have a need to have a policy on.
Yeah,
the
and then
books.
no matter what happens, it's gonna be controversial, but you know how I voted when it came down to the dunes, so I was the lone no vote. Here's my approach to it, and it will probably not be very popular with some. But my approach is, if there is town infrastructure that is in harm's way. And i.e. lot 12, when that lot was washed out and was very close becoming electrical, sewer, water. And if that infrastructure goes down or is in jeopardy of going down, I think the town should act. What that action is, I don't know, because I don't know what the state of whatever scenario is that's happening. But on 12, if we didn't do anything, there could have been a more drastic impact to town infrastructure that not only would have affected 12, it would have affected everyone downstream from that infrastructure. Potentially both sides of it. So in my view, when there is town infrastructure that is in jeopardy, we have the obligation to try to do something. And that's it. And if there's no town infrastructure in place, it's up to that individual unit owner to take whatever action and expense that is needed to protect their property. The town doesn't own that property. They will own it. And there's a certain, listen, this happens up and down the East Coast line. You can go to North Carolina and see homes falling into the ocean. And
Malibu,
the
California.
county of that home or the city of that home isn't deploying town resources to protect individual properties. That's my approach. That's the way I would look at
If I may, The one problem with that approach is that we own a portion of that dune out there that's past the residents' property line. And that's what I was just asking about. That's not well. defined. And if that's the case, we would have been incumbent, based on your rationale, we could have gone out and placed sand past that property line at 12 and left the hole behind it.
That's right, that's
And so
exactly right,
therefore,
but we're under
we
no
will-
obligation to do that.
But that's our property based on your definition just now
Mhm.
to protect our infrastructure. That front edge of that dune is part of our infrastructure. So therefore, it would be incumbent on us to protect
We would,
that.
we wouldn't have the obligation to do it. And we wouldn't have to do it unless town infrastructure was in place.
But that dune is
So-
part of the town infrastructure.
Well, show me.
That's
Show me,
my
but
point.
I don't have to,
It's
but
there.
I'm under no obligation to do it, so under that scenario. Under like what you're saying is under like 12, what happened at 12. We would put a strip of sand down, leave it vacant, well, the homeowner would have to put theirs down
Yes,
too, right?
that's very true.
They would have to do that, but I'm under no obligation to do it, I don't have to do it. As a town,
Based on your initial comment that if it's our infrastructure that's threatened, then it's incumbent on us to maintain the protection of that infrastructure. It would be us to have to do that, and it would put a strip and it'd leave a gap behind it, and then it'd be incumbent on the owners to fill that gap. If we get that line defined, that makes this whole discussion a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because it would be defined that this is your property, this is your responsibility, this is ours, this is only what we're gonna give you.
right, and
And
we
we would
would,
be the end of discussion.
yeah, that's true, that's all true, that's all true.
So there's an easy fix to that, and I know it's micro, but every property along there has a survey.
Sure.
So the expense is us,
Exactly.
the expense is us doing benchmarks along
And it doesn't have
on
to
the ground.
be benchmark out there, it doesn't have to be
It's
there, it
about
just has to
hundred
be
and 10 feet out
defined
from the,
what
property
it
line.
is from where that property line is. And Ed, I believe, went through the process of getting some of those surveys from the individual homeowners that were under threat along that beachfront. So we should already have some of them on hand.
we have a
It's
lot
a
more
matter of-
filed than.
The plan should show it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The plan
Yeah.
should show it.
there's one in here that does, I believe.
Yeah, but it's having it actually kind of staked out, and
Yeah.
so we know.
Right.
Which could also be reactive during an event, which isn't the best scenario, but we can definitely
But the
define the
plan-
boundary.
Place ahead of time so that there wouldn't be any, this
Yeah.
batches forth requirement that happened with 16, what happened with 11.
And you know, we
just-
really need like a Six Sigma disaster recovery plan that's perfect, well articulated. We have all the technology in place, we're timely, and we're above the bar, we're doing the best we can. We're not reactive and not having a debate over property lines. I mean, the miracle happened in February, quite frankly. But okay, that's a heads up. We've got to be prepared going forward, and I mean, really prepared.
Yeah, I mean, just again, put it in perspective, right, we've spent
No, I understand all that.
$600,000
Finding that line for
Yeah, but it's
everybody.
not a-
No
hauling
So-
that sand. We're talking about having $1 million reserve,
Just outside.
and we only repaired a very small portion of that beach, so.
It's
real-
Okay, it's gonna be
Hey, guys,
expensive.
one conversation, please.
One line.
You know, we're talking about $1 million reserve. That $1 million is nothing. Nothing. If a real storm comes through here and wipes that beach out.
Yeah.
You're talking about $4 to $5 million of beach
Okay,
restoration.
but what does that do to the entire community?
I'm just laying it out. I hear.
I'm not afraid of the money. We have to do what's right.
Yeah, I think we need to be proactive as much as we can as far as having an annual plan. I put on here under general resiliency where we can refurbish the part of the beach that is part of the town and keep that up every year. And then the encroachment then starts there instead of, if we don't do that, then the encroachment starts closer to the property owners, and then we have a real problem. And I know we're making progress with the grants. I
Yeah.
think that this idea, I came from people telling me about what Jupiter Island does.
And that came out of
We've been
their
doing it for years.
resilience.
I know we're way, way behind, but we're taking small steps, and I think that's where we need to get to, is being proactive to try to to mitigate as much of the potential damage from a big event. I mean, we had a very, full moon almost and a very high tide yesterday morning. Dog walkers couldn't go out on the beach. I mean,
There was no beach.
I know Steve was here, one of the lot owners. Yeah, it's worrisome again.
The Jupiter Island, the way they approach it, I guess we met with them, a couple of us met with them, I think Chief, you were there. They have essentially what is a special district, so they got. I think it's authorized by the state legislature, so they, and it was enacted in 1970, to give you an idea, so they're 50 years ahead of us. That special district assesses every property in Jupiter Island. So right now, we have ad valorem taxes here, and everybody pays their millage rate of 5.6 mils on their assessed valuation. And then, so assume that, and then Jupiter Island has this special district that sits above that.
Yeah.
And they charge, and I don't know the exact, call it 2 additional mils on their assessed valuation for everybody in the town. I think they raise either $1 million or $2 million a year on that special district. And they use that and to replenish the beach through permitting. They use that to get additional funding through DEP and or the federal government for beach renourishment. And so they have almost a $2 million a year reoccurring valuation assessment every year, 2 million. Our budget is 3.5 million. So what, if we were to replicate what Jupiter Island does, we would be looking at raising over, just for beach renourishment, just for beach restoration, just for dune restoration, probably in the neighborhood of $500,000 a year. That is 1/7 of our budget. And so your millage rate in the town, I'm not gonna do the math here, but the millage rate here would go up and your taxes would go up. We should do the math and do the exercise and let the residents know that if they truly want to do that type of effort, this is what you're going to pay in your property taxes every year.
It doesn't have to be exactly the same as Jupiter Island.
I'm not suggesting it does. We're referring to Jupiter.
No, I know what they
And
do.
because we're referring to them and it's apples to apples, that's a good example.
No,
we
I
don't
know,
have to
I know
do
what
that.
they do. I know.
Yeah, we don't have to do that. We can do it at a lower level of funding. But it's important that residents know
Right.
that if this is what your expectation is, here's the cost. Here's the cost. Do you want to pay an extra? I don't know how, it's all public record. I pay in all my ad valorem taxes. Everyone can look it up. I can look everyone else's up. I pay $44,000 a year. Would I pay $50,000 a year? Would I pay $60,000 a year? What's it worth to each individual homeowner to want to have that type of plan associated with the beach?
I also want to say, in Jupiter Island, the houses along the ocean are held to a very, very strict standard. They can't just have an anemic response to something like this. They just can't sit back and let it happen. They're personally responsible for maintaining a seawall, maintaining the plantings. So it's a shared responsibility.
Additionally, that drives the whole discussion about building and zoning. Because we are allowing homes to be built on the ocean that perhaps are a little too big in their footprint if we're thinking about resiliency. So, it all kind of fits
Mhm.
together, and that will come up in other discussions, and what are their responsibilities along the coastal line, and what should we be enforcing? I personally, having my time in local government, instead of adding it to the ad valorem, and this is philosophical, but I just want to throw it out there as we will continue to have these conversations. That's why I always bring up assessments, because it's kind of, it makes it a dedicated pot of money. And part of your legacy is putting that in place. So if the consensus of the commission, and I'm just making this up, is beach resiliency and storm resiliency, having an assessment puts it in place for 10 years, 20 years, whatever we're allowed to do. And it shows a commitment. Because the next commission could come in if it was just in the ad valorem or in the
And cut it.
annual budget and cut it.
Mhm.
And so what's the purpose upon building of this if we don't have, it's kind of putting your money where your mouth is.
That's right.
Yeah, if we can legally get the assessment approved, it's sometimes not always easy, but I'm just kind of throwing out that thought process as well. And then you can also use that worst case scenario, if you had to go get money, it becomes the collateral. It's a very strategic way to
You
commit
loan,
to
you go out and get a
something.
loan against it.
Yes.
Just like we
yes.
did with the.
Just like we've done with the infrastructure, so.
Okay.
yeah.
At this point, maybe it's a good time to. First off, we've been at it for 90 minutes. So you want to take a 5-minute bathroom break, we can do that, and then we'll open up the public comment and we'll
Yeah,
wrap it up.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Great.
So we'll adjourn the meeting for 5 to 10 minutes.
how about when we come back, we do like every commissioner kind of gives their summary of what they've heard and their
Yeah, good.
thought, and then public comment.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I would just mute it. You can take that off the screen.
Don't go on the walkway, there's some very.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate that.
Call the meeting back to order. All right, so Heidi, you wanted to, okay, yeah. So I think what we're gonna do before we open the public comment is we're gonna go around the room for the commissioners, just so Heidi, I mean, we've gone through the slide deck. You know, maybe if you could just give Heidi the top 3 things from each of the commissioners. From a priority standpoint, thinking strategically, what would be your top 3 priorities? So that we can kind of come to a consensus as we exit the meeting here. So Bill, do you want to go first or?
Sure. Top 3. I think number 1 is the physical infrastructure that's sitting out in front of us here.
Okay.
The road structure and the storm drain system. Obviously, we'll talk more about that on Monday because there's a couple issues.
Yep.
with several of the drain heads that I don't understand, and that goes back to the people who make.
So
that
that,
heads in.
so that the infrastructure piece ties to, you know, budgeting approximately,
Yes.
approximately $75,000 a year for maintenance of critical infrastructure, right? Okay, that would be number 1.
I would go with number 2 would be that the concept of establishing a plan, the emergency plan, emergency management system, if you will. Not necessarily to the point, because I agree with it being something to be very hard to cost out,
Right.
because there are so many variables that would be mixed into it, but to at least establish what we foresee. And I realize that our grant that we're gonna be executing here is gonna be looking at that, but I agree that we need to be looking at it sooner than that 18-month or 2-year report out on that. And great, I think that's probably, well, beach access. The beach would be the number 3, along the lines of establishing what our beach is. That will eliminate a lot of comments between town members and then also the access to it.
Okay, and I guess,
There's 3.
yes, that's the beach one. Would that also entail the establishment of a funding source for restoration?
A determination if that's what we're wanting to go to, and if so, then yes, establishing.
All right, thank you.
And that would include the access aspect.
Yeah, yep. So
Yeah.
determination of access.
Yeah.
All right, Marie?
Just to make it quick and easy, okay, 2 and 3 is what Bill just talked about, beach and road, so I'll concur with that.
Okay,
And the other thing is, just the basic, operations that we keep our policies and procedures updated. I know that's not strategically to go along year to year to be, updated. That's all. Thank you.
okay. Dave?
Yeah, my 3, I'd echo Bill's and include, all coastal access
Okay,
as far as how we have a plan to maintain and then look ahead and be proactive, including beach access and restoration. I think staffing, the benefits, what we talked about with the, not just with
Yeah.
chief and his department, but also our town and everything, and making sure that we're there. And then town operations, making sure everything works. I put up there the clock is 5 minutes off.
It's fixed.
Call that in.
I've been waiting all day to tell them.
6 years like that. We'll talk offline. That's fine.
Anyways, but Patty and I talked about the broken window theory, about how,
Yes.
make everything work, right? And so town operations.
Good. And Sharon, your top 3?
First, constant respect for people, number 1. Number 2, uncompromising integrity. Number 3 is breakthrough innovation. I think we should have the best and the most innovative technology. And then 4 is superior financial results.
Okay,
Mine would be, obviously, I think beach and resiliency, funding, reserves, and there's so many other ones, but I'm trying to think of like the top 2. Public safety,
great,
expanding cameras, what we need to do to harden the community.
great,
Okay.
wonderful.
All right, so you got
I
that
got that.
list. Let's, at this point, if there's no objection, there's some very patient, residents and neighbors are here. And so we would like to open it up to you, so whoever wants to speak, try to not filibuster. We don't need a Cory Booker moment here.
We have our timer right there.
We'll be somewhat generous, but
Just remember, my motto was KIS. Keep it simple.
yes, perfect.
Two things.
Short, all right.
Number one, I can remember when head of the building and zoning in regards to road damage when new construction was done. And with the amount of, we were paying for it, they were paying for permits. Instead of charging the contractor, it was built into the cost of the permit. But there again, nothing was enforced. So that's why, that was the lack of it. Second, I'll make this brief, is the two walkways by the beach. I'm speaking for a lot of residents. Instead of, or before they do this one on the intercoastal, how about we have a bench that you can sit on? The benches are terrible, nobody sits on it. The material is terrible, it's always wet. So consequently, when you go up there, they're always empty, nobody sits there. If we could do something about putting new benches, the residents would love that,
Okay,
that's it.
all right, good.
Just one thing, when you were talking about reserves before. One rainy day, I spent a lot of time with an artificial intelligence model going through all of Florida, coastal zoning regulations. And it's always bothered me, and I think maybe to some degree, because you voted no, bothered you at the time. To appropriate, $600,000 or $500,000, or whatever it was to fix two properties, which is basically what we did. We took a third of the town's money and we fixed two properties. There was clearly an emergency. I would maintain that the emergency was not of the town, it was the emergency for lot 11 and lot 12. The Florida coastal zoning regulations are very obscure when it comes to whose liability it is to actually pay. But it becomes a little bit clearer when you look into the building regulations initially that says when a builder builds in a coastal area in a known potential erosion situation, they absolutely must build a dune, build a wall, build whatever it takes, which they clearly didn't in the case of 12, as evidenced by the fact that they have done it now at their own expense. Complicated further by the fact that several property owners stepped up on their own dime recently, didn't come to you and say, hey, we were hurt by the same storm that just spent $600,000 on to fix their property. Where's my money? They paid for it themselves. And the last of it is that somebody's got to run with this. If you think it's an idea worth running with, the statute of limitations to collect from 11 and 12 has not run out yet. As a matter of fact, because of what happened this past, a few weeks back when they put all this in, it further strengthens the town's case to assess them something. Because nobody here can sit here and say that what happened on the town's property because of the town. Did it happen on 12 because they weren't reinforced properly when they actually built it? Don't know. But if you go through all the you can't go through all the regulations, but they pretty much can. We're owed money from 11 and 12. But we're not going to collect it unless we ask for it. We ask for it, we probably have a lawsuit. But if we had a good coastal regulations law firm, you'd find fairly quickly that we didn't have to step up for that $600,000. We did it. It was an emergency. We used the town's resources to do it, but we didn't have to pay for it. And I think if we had Heidi here at the time, running point on that, I really doubt we would spend the $500,000. And it's not too late to go back. So I would throw that out to you strategically for the commission to consider, is there something there? Because we're talking about building reserves, that's a big number. Even if we collected $100,000 a piece from those two lots, which they surely should pay. Because why didn't they ask for it the second time around? They're not clearly, nobody's blaming the town. Because if they did, you'd have a bill for what they just did. And they spent a few $100,000 to do it.
What I would, thank you for your comment. What I would, if you're so inclined, if you want to give us a lawyer, a coastal law, because I don't know.
I don't want to.
Okay, you don't, okay, well, maybe you can just take an action, talk to Bill.
Yeah.
All right, appreciate that. Anybody else?
decide,
I'll be
okay,
clean up.
go Matt
I'll be
first.
long.
Go Matt first.
Matt, he says,
You want Matt
you're
first?
first.
Yeah,
You're
go
first.
ahead.
Okay, just a couple, one question to the chief first, and I don't want that to come against my minutes, because I have other things to say. With regard to recruiting, you mentioned, the question.
Time's up, sorry.
For recruiting, I noticed like even the new hire, if you're hiring somebody, and this is just a broad question, if you're hiring somebody with 29 years of experience versus hiring somebody with 3 years of experience, does that change the cost, the process? Because I noticed most of our staff are older, maybe some retired and then reignited in this role. Does that come into play? Is that something we've thought about, hiring younger people? And I'm just curious. I don't have a bias one way or the other. I'm just asking from a cost perspective.
Hold on,
Very-
chief, you know
I mean,
this,
she does-
but we're not talking about older or younger, we're talking about years of experience.
Yeah.
Well, I don't.
No, you can't do
Okay,
all.
okay, sorry.
Thank you,
Not-
Matt,
Okay.
I'll give you an answer.
Less
Yeah.
experience, more
Thank you.
experience. Thank you.
thank you.
Here's the thing.
Another law.
I'm not on the commission, I'm just the person.
When you hire somebody, let's take Jupiter, for example. They can hire people right out of the academy. And they're gonna learn on the job very quickly because of the volume of what they have to deal with. Whether it's family fights, whether it's accidents, whether it's homicide, whatever. People we bring in have got all that experience. They never get the level of experience that they get because of the repetition every day, the training they get over time. We're bringing in people that got massive amounts of training. So they're coming in at a less salary here than what rookies are coming into these other departments. So we're getting the biggest bang for the buck of anybody.
Your question.
That was my question.
If they're
Yeah.
entering, pay equated to the extra experience that they had bringing with them or not.
What was their
The answer-
salary in Jupiter?
The answer is no.
120, 110?
What was
Or,
started.
yeah, let's, a 29-year veteran of the
Yeah,
Jupiter
she
PD.
was over 100.
Yeah, well,
So, drop that down in half, basically, coming here.
Okay, that's just-
So,
okay, thank you.
that's my whole process, not only the fact that the background investigations that you have to do with somebody, we know what we're getting here. They come in with a track record, and just by the volume of people that came here for the swearing in, you realize what you're getting.
we're lucky.
And I guess just to follow that up, does that extensive experience create some more turnover because they only want to work for 5 or 6 more years, or do you think that plays into the fact that we have turnover so much?
No,
Okay,
we did not have the overall quality here. They weren't able to attract people. The changes that we've made is allowing us to attract people. The fact that they're going to continue getting the training every year that they were getting in Jupiter, but we're not having to pay.
And if I can just talk to the turnover real quick, the turnover's been very specific. I know it looks like almost like an epidemic. It's been very specific. And we've had a culture of change, and when you have a culture of change, it's not unusual to have that turnover. And some of those who have left in the last maybe 9 months have all been part of a longer term culture here. And there's definitely a different expectation of how we police now.
All right, get to your strategic things.
so strategically, does the town have a finance committee to review loans, things of that sort? And if not, I think it's something that should be considered from a strategic perspective, even if it meets once a year, just to review all the finance. Do we have a mortgage on the building? Should we have a mortgage on the building? Should we refinance the mortgage on the building? Those types of questions, I think from a strategic perspective, that would be helpful.
Okay.
And then on the last comment I would make is just broadly speaking, we spend 80 to 90% of our time talking about the beach, but we are a coastal community. We have access, or water should have access on both sides of the
of the community for people that live on that side of the community. It's just as important as people that live on that side of the community. And so, you know, I reiterate my support for spending a little focus on this side of the community and money. We spent a lot of money on beach access and decks and such. So that's kind of where
Awesome, thank you. Chip?
Yeah. Quite a bit, so I asked for your indulgence, I made notes all along. Not in any order, just by virtue of the discussion. The police, I would reiterate what Heidi said. If you remember, a year and a half ago, we were surprised to find that we were gonna have a chief and 2 deputy chiefs and a captain and God knows what else and so on. So we went through the whole process of finding a new chief with the charge of a new structure for the department and certainly upgrading the department. So in line with what Heidi said and in reference to Chief Kerr, what we have done is upgrade the department considerably and gotten some really wonderful people here. And I think that's very important to recognize. And well, I don't need to repeat everything that's been said, but basically we have a bargaining deal here. And it's good duty, there's no question about that for a lot of police. But we have a really, really good deal here. Architectural review or anything like it has been discussed going back to 20 years. And it's met with, in the old town, the composition of the old town, met with big objections. Don't tread on me, kind of, it's my property, I should be able to do whatever I want. I would say that it does need to be revisited in whatever form makes sense. Because the town has changed quite a bit since then, and I have no idea what the temperature of the town would be now for that sort of addition to the code. I do agree that the current code is way too vague in terms of consonance with the neighboring properties and so on. Street maintenance, I understand the idea of a separate fund for that. One of the advantages that we've had as a town is that our ad valorem covers everything. So it's really simple for people to understand. Other towns, even Jupiter, separate fire rescue, separate sanitation waste management, everything's broken out separately. Which leads to a lot of consternation and confusion. And when a contract has to be renewed, for example, with waste management, then it becomes a political issue as opposed to what's best in terms of governmental issue. So I would just add that I'm certainly not against the idea of an assessment for emergency reserve for the beach or whatever. But there is a big advantage to having a simple ad valorem. And along those lines, I would encourage, I lived through 13 years of the first 7 years or so of the commission increasing the ad valorem rate or decreasing the ad valorem rate, yo-yoing it and so on. And then I did a study going back showing the commissioners the damage that had been done over a period of time by not being able to predict what the hell was going to go on with the economy, with our property values and so on. And so we settled at the rate we're at now, pretty much about 5 years ago. That was a comfortable rate. That really needs to be revisited in terms of what the town requires now. And especially, we need to be careful in terms of what the state legislature and the governor may or may not do with so many really crazy bills that they're considering. So we have to stay really on top of that. But I would hesitate to decrease the ad valorem rate, especially since so many of the houses are homesteaded here. It's welcome that we have people who are not homesteaded, especially in some of the properties around me and over the beach. There is a beach survey bill. I don't know if it's still current. I assume it would be.
But there's no reason why it should be a mystery as far as where the property owners' rights are as opposed to the town and what our responsibilities are. And I hate to disagree with my good friend Fran, but I think we made a decision back in February, right after I retired as mayor, to spend that money. And it wasn't to protect, it was partly because of help those people who were in dire straits at 11 and 12. But it was mostly the fact that our beach had been decimated as well. So, I mean, if you want to try to assign what costs what, or certainly I'm not against investigating the issues that Fran raised about hiring a coastal lawyer or whatever. But I'm not sure that we're on really firm grounds if we have to go to those people and ask them or tell them that we're trying to enforce that and get money back. I do think we need a resiliency task force. Matt mentioned a finance committee. You have to be careful with committees because there's a charter requirement on committees. If it's an official town commission committee and sunshine and other things apply. So I'm not against the idea of a finance committee, but just be aware of what you're getting into with that. I think it's a good idea to have a resiliency task force when we get the grant money and that project that is comprised of Heidi and at least one commissioner and some of the residents who have strong feelings about resilience and restoration, what needs to be done there. Can't read my own writing. Okay. Oh, and as far as our responsibilities, along with what Fran was saying, we do have a responsibility, I believe, as a town, to work with the property owners in the event of another catastrophe, to work with the property owners, because we have to deal with the county and the state and maybe even the feds in terms of regulations and the thicket of things that you have to go through. And Ed did that when he was the mayor with that project. And I do think we have an obligation to work with the property owners in terms, not necessarily financial terms, but in terms of dealing with the authorities. Because there are some pretty strange regulations, like not allowing us to put riprap in and things like that, that need to be really thought through in our resiliency efforts. And to see if we can either get the law changed or get some special provisions or whatever. And Marie has constantly brought up, and I agree with her, this idea of our infrastructure being threatened on ocean because of the possibility of floods coming in from the ocean. And I think that's very, very important to keep in mind. So whatever we do with zoning on the beachfront properties, we ought to keep in mind that the protection of the sewer, the electric lines and everything else, all our utilities that are on the street. So that's basically what I got. Sorry to take so much time.
Thank you. Are there any other public? There's only one left.
Well, I guess I want to, thank you all for taking the time to do this and to invite the public to participate and so that we can focus as a community and be able to, focus on, find out what our priorities and wants are. So I'm, when we talk about a couple of things that come to mind are the Architectural Review Committee. And I think when we're looking at that, I want to just be sure that from my perspective, one of the things I really, really like about the colony, I've been here a long time now, but even is thinking of communities and how they function and how they are healthy communities, have a diversity of styles and focuses, and so I just wanna, in age groups, so we've got children and, you know, retirees and working folks, and I like to have that diversity. I think that makes a really healthy community. And when I get a little nervous sometimes when we think about, you know, architectural review, that this is what we want, and everyone ends up being exactly the same, tiny little houses on the hill. And I think that we need to be careful about that. What I might like might not be the same as a committee of people that say you have to have this, and this. So I would just warn us of that and try to embrace diversity. And I really love the fact that so many folks have brought up the environment. And that's really, that's really great. And not only the beach environment, but just how the environment and how we function within it. I'm really so supportive of the resiliency and the planning for the future, and talking about dune restoration, and our responsibilities in that, and how that is important to us, not only for the quality of life that we have, but also for our infrastructure and what we've invested in our community over these years. I think it's really, I'm really pleased at the conversations and the information that you all have put forward. So I thank you for that, and I appreciate the hard work, and if I can help in any way, I'm always here.
Thank you. Thank you for all your comments. Well,
Thank you very much.
thank you, appreciate it. There's a lot here. You know, and you know, your staff is very small, you know, obviously. So I don't know how you wanna begin to even tackle some of these things, but it's gonna require a lot of thought and discussion with your staff and with others, and maybe individual conversations with the commission as well, to kind of refine the thought around some of these items. But how would you propose to proceed with some of these?
So I think our.
I mean, if you want some thought, you want some time to think about it.
Yeah.
That's okay too.
No, I think the timing of this is great. It gives us pretty much a couple months to start researching cost for things and prioritizing from what we know we need, you know, operational. And I think our next discussion really about this will be in June, when we have some numbers and we can start to
Wanna do it?
craft it.
Budget workshop.
Yeah, it would be like our first budget workshop, but unlike in the past, we are now going in informed.
Yeah.
And with some direction of what to present. So it won't be too much horse trading, I think, at that time, because you've kind of done that today with setting your priorities. So I think the next conversation we have formally would be in early June, but of course, you know, we can continue one-on-one speaking about this. We have some important conversations coming up at both the April and May
Okay.
commission meetings that relate to a lot of these items. The bids are due in the next couple weeks, so that's gonna start working. So I think we're perfect with time.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
it is,
There's a lot.
but it's, like I said, it's a more informed budget process for us.
Which we needed to have
Basically-
had from years ago, to where we walk in and we're just blindsided with, we got a bunch of numbers, but what was the origin with them? And we need to have more, we need to look more strategically into insurance plans and stuff like that on our budget.
She's gonna give
What
us some
she's gonna do.
information on that. She's gonna give us the hurricane plan as
Right.
well, you know, the limits of liability, limits of our insurance, our costs and all that. Yeah. I guess. Based on this. We'll have a budget workshop. And there was a lot of comments up there about what we should be doing, and again, it all comes at somewhat of a cost. You know, I understand what Chip said about the millage rate being fixed and all that, We'll have to see what gets funded this year. And how do we build reserves and maintain that millage rate. That may be difficult to do. It may be difficult to, really gonna depend on what the property appraiser gives you on June 1.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
okay, well, I guess, I mean, I don't have
Yeah.
any other comments unless any staff has anything else, and if the commission wants any closing comments?
Well,
No?
I just want to say one quick
Yeah.
thing. Based on the interior homes that have built in the past couple of months. We had one that sold for 6.5, the other one was sold for 6 million, so that's already raised, you know, we've only had 2 sales on the interior so far, but just want to say those numbers are getting higher.
Great.
Alluding to a higher appraisal.
Exactly.
Any other comments?
No, but I'm
We
just saying.
adjourn an hour early.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out on your Saturday.